Serato DJ Pro for the Rane SYSTEM ONE has now been released, around a month after the device was revealed to the world. It might have been better if it had been available at launch perhaps, but 4 weeks is nowhere close to the longest gap that we've seen with other devices in the past, so I'm not complaining. Yesterday I shot a kind of demo video showing how it all works, but I watched it back and I concluded it was kind of redundant. I've already seen the walkthrough by Jake from Rane that's going to be on their channel, and he does a great job of breaking everything down. So I thought I'd make a different kind of video instead. I've now used the SYSTEM ONE at a bunch of gigs, using just Engine standalone, and I'm still absolutely loving it. I do think if you're going to buy one, then you should get to know it as a standalone device, and that is how I intend to use it almost exclusively. But as good as that experience has been, there are still some reasons why software support is important on such a unit. So let's talk about those. 1. Going all in on standalone can be a scary thing. It's quite feasible at this point to have had a 20-year career as a DJ and have only ever DJ'd with a laptop. Myself, well, I've used it all. I've played around with Engine since the first SC5000 players came out, and back in the mid-2010s, I bought myself a pair of CDJ2000 Nexus decks, and I played pretty much exclusively off USBs for a couple of years. So I'm perfectly comfortable on standalone. But if you started DJing in, say, 2006 with Serato Scratch Live, and you've never needed to play on standalone devices before, totally possible in the open format world, then waving goodbye to that laptop can be a daunting prospect. So the idea of dropping 2.5 bags on a SYSTEM ONE and being forced, until now, to adopt an entirely new way of DJing could be a step too far for some. And what if you decide that standalone isn't for you, at least not all of the time? Well, now you have the option to use software if you want, and the SYSTEM ONE is a superb controller too, so your money wasn't wasted. 2. Storage in 2026 is a problem. As if there weren't enough reasons to hate the AI industry already, this year we have a new one. The demand for memory for their data centers that they are creating means that prices for USB drives and SSDs have gone through the roof. In many cases, the cost has doubled or worse for SSDs just since the start of 2026. And sure, a 256 gig USB stick is still reasonably affordable, but if you want your entire large music library on a drive and you don't own that drive already, then buying it today will be a costly endeavor. Things are compounded by the current requirement for stems to be pre-analyzed by Engine to use them on the SYSTEM ONE. I'm using a 1 terabyte drive, which is almost full. A quarter of that space is my music, and the other 3/4 is stems files. I did almost my whole library. Rane have said publicly that they're working on a more on-the-fly solution for stems, but right now it may be more wallet-friendly to stick to using a laptop for gigs where you might need all of your music, especially if you're a heavy user of stems. 3. You might miss some software features. On the subject of stems, the ones in Engine are pretty good, perfectly usable in the mix, I'd say. But they aren't the best. Serato's, virtual DJs and algorithms are all superior in some aspects, so you might prefer to stick to using those for some types of gigs. When it comes to streaming music, Engine on the SYSTEM ONE integrates loads of different services, and they work great. I've played Beatsource tracks on there at my gigs without issue. But at those gigs, I've had solid Wi-Fi, and there is no offline locker support in Engine, which I've been hounding them about for years. So if I'm doing a gig with a certain theme, where I'll be playing a bunch of tracks from Beatsource or Beatport which I don't want to have in my library forever, well, I'll need to use Serato or some other software which supports that offline functionality. Oh, and because you can't pre-analyze them, there are no stems for my Beatsource tracks on Engine either, where there is in software. It is quite remarkable how feature-packed Engine OS is, but still there may be other aspects of different software that are part of your workflow which it just can't replicate. Serato Flip, Virtual DJ's Track Edit, Algoriddim's phenomenal fluid beat grids, or maybe you also do video sets or karaoke. Engine does do an awful lot, but it can't do all of that. So you'll still need software to use features like those. 4. library navigation is different on standalone. Engine on the System One is actually very slick when it comes to getting around your library. Something I never noticed until playing out with it is that you can touch the scroll bar and very quickly move around large playlists, for example. There's also the sorting options, the track filter, and you can even connect a physical keyboard for searching if you like. I've been eyeing up some folding Bluetooth ones recently. But if you're already comfortable using a laptop, this can all still feel a bit restrictive at first. You can just see a lot more crates and tracks on that big laptop screen, and maybe you use things like keyboard shortcuts to swiftly move around in your library. So I completely understand if some DJs might want to stick with using a laptop for that reason, at least while they adjust to the streaming workflow. 5. Redundancy. I'm a great believer in a belt and braces approach to backup and redundancy. Whatever happens, the show must go on. So when I'm playing standalone, I carry at least 5 or 6 different drives. As mentioned, an expensive investment in 2026 if you don't have them already. Plus, I generally carry my laptop anyway. So having that software support really gives me the confidence that if somehow I've corrupted my entire Engine library, well, I can use the laptop instead, and the party can still get rocked. 6. Performing with other DJs. Perhaps you've bought your shiny new System One and you've gone all in on Engine standalone. That's fantastic. But maybe you're going to spin at a party where some other DJ friends will be jumping on. If they use Rekordbox standalone, that's fine. Engine will read their sticks. But without software support, users of Serato or other platforms wouldn't be able to use your hardware, and that could be a hassle. So in conclusion, as you can see, yes, software support is still really important for the System One. And thanks to the new OmniSource architecture on the device, it's implemented in a far more practical way than it was on previous Engine devices. With those, you effectively had to reboot to change over to software, but on the Rane, you can switch back and forth in a completely frictionless way. Serato are first out of the gate with their support for the System One, as it should be, their name is all over it. But Virtual DJ is on the way, as is support for Algoriddim's DJ Pro, which, to be honest, excites me the most. That's because the System One will also work with DJ Pro on iOS, which means I can, in fact, leave my laptop at home and just have my phone there at all times as that redundant backup I'm looking for when I'm playing standalone. Before I finish, a quick tip for those of you who are trying standalone for the first time. You might be tempted to do as I have up to now and import your Serato crates into Engine as is. That works, but in my experience, standalone is smoother when you have a larger number of more focused, smaller crates or playlists. So over time, try and build those crates out specifically for Engine. Until you get there, here's another idea, and I did this at my first gig with the System One. I had replicated my Serato library in Engine, and I was a little rusty on standalone, so I had my laptop open at the side with Serato running, but not connected. When I was hunting for a track and I didn't know where it was or wasn't sure what crate it was in, I would navigate to it in Serato on the laptop like I normally would. Then I used that insight on where to find it as a reference for Engine on the System One. Now, of course, you no longer need to do that. You can hook up Serato itself. But if you're looking to get more comfortable using the System One in standalone mode, which is probably why you bought it, then that could be a helpful way of smoothing that process. Serato support for the System One is out now, and it's a full release, not a beta, so go ahead and install version 4.0.3 of that and update your System One to the new 4.6.0 firmware. You can do that via the Engine website or, more simply, just over the air on the unit itself when you're connected to Wi-Fi. In the comments, I'd love to hear from those of you who have already picked up a System One. How have you been getting on with it? And also, let's talk a little bit about standalone versus software. Both workflows have their strengths and weaknesses, of course, and I'd love to hear any tips from you about ways to get comfortable when saying goodbye to the laptop. As always, sound off down below. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Beatsource Tech. If you liked it, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. All the links are down in the description. I'll see you next time.